What's going on YouTube? It's Teej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my picks for week 4 of the NFL season. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, hit that like button, it would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more sports content like this, just hit that big red subscribe button and comment your picks for the weekend down in the comment section, or tell me where I'm wrong and let me hear why. I'd love to have your thoughts. Let's have a discussion about week 4 of the NFL season down in the comment section below. If you missed last week's, I changed it up a little bit. I'm just going to be making my predictions, not going to be doing predictions for the week and picks versus the spread, just going to talk predictions. I went 11-5 last week, pretty good, bringing up my season total to 27-21, looking to build some momentum moving forward. I will talk about a couple of games where I think the spread is maybe interesting to bet the other side, including this Thursday night game. I'm taking the Bengals to win, but I don't know. First half from Jacksonville, they were competitive. I mean, aided by a 109-yard, missed field goal short, Jamal Agnew just being a stud, special teams beast, bringing it back for 6. That definitely helped make it look even closer than it really was, but I think there's a chance the Jags can lose by a touchdown or less, but I'm definitely taking the Bengals to win. Washington football team and Atlanta. Man, that offensive line has just been egregious for Atlanta. Now, the coverage unit for Washington hasn't necessarily been very good, so maybe Matt Ryan's able to get the ball out quick. Maybe they're finally able to get a pass more than 20 yards down the field. Maybe today or this weekend I should say, they're finally able to use Kyle Pitts more than just as a tight end. I can hope, but I'm going to go with Taylor Heinicke having a bounce back week. Last week was definitely the low end of his variables, and the pass rush is too much for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan just does not play well against pressure, so because of that, I'll take Washington. Bills and Houston, definitely taking the Bills to win. And, this is a tough line to cover, 16 points. I mean, that's a huge mark, but the Bills defense has looked a little better. Davis Mills, see how much that playbook opens. If Tim Kelly's willing to open the playbook and try some new stuff with Davis Mills, there's a chance that the Texans could cover. But if they're going to keep it at that simplified, rudimentary version of that Houston offense, I don't think the Texans are going to be in a position to try to cover against a really good team. Additionally, this offense is clicking right now, so I'm not entirely sure Houston will have an answer for it on really any drive. It's going to be tough to come away with stops if you're a Texans fan. Bears and Lions. Man, this is weirdly one of the hardest games to pick because Detroit's been battling with people, right? Like, it takes a record-breaking kick for them to lose to Baltimore. Also, a ton of Hollywood Brown drops. That definitely helps as well. And then they have the backdoor cover against San Francisco. They're fighting hard with Green Bay in the first half. They've done things to stay in games. And then you compare that to Chicago that we saw last week, and my word, I mean, the offensive line is just a disaster. The play calling's not good. Nobody's able to get open, and then none of that helps Justin Fields, of course. The defense isn't all that bad, I suppose, against Cleveland, but it wasn't necessarily good either. So definitely a tough one. I don't know. Something's just telling me I should go with Detroit here. Get the road upset. Get them one of their few wins they'll have this year. And it might also just spell that, Matt Nagy might not be the guy. The offensive line is worse than, everybody's talking about. And I don't know. I really want to see Justin Fields play well. But I don't know. I don't know. The Lions are staying competitive and competing while the Bears last week just looked like a travesty. Panthers and Cowboys, Carolina's first real test. And this is a really fun one in the sense of, Carolina's defense is definitely better than I thought it was. And, will that live up against an offense that is really, really good, obviously? Dallas is still able to pour on points. I'm going to take the Cowboys. The defense is a little bit better. Trevon Diggs has taken some nice strides here in year 2. And this is the first real test for Carolina. And we'll talk about this with Denver later on. If they win this game, I'll start buying it even more. And then they'll solidify in my eyes. At this point in the year, I'll see them as a top 10 team and as a serious contender, whoever they're playing against. But for right now, I think they're a team that's good against really bad competition. Let me see it against a good team. I think Dallas is a pretty solid team. So good test here. I'm taking the Cowboys at home. Dolphins and Colts. If Carson Wentz is playing and he's just a little bit more healthy, I think I like the Colts avoiding 0-4 here. I think that's part of it too. It's just desperation. You just cannot fall to 0-4 and have any sort of shot at making the playoffs. I mean, maybe they do technically and statistically speaking, but if you're an NFL fan, you know how hard that is. Meanwhile, it doesn't get necessarily easier for Miami because they're definitely on a bottom of a mountain looking up, 1-2. Jacoby Brissett played okay last week, pretty solid. It did feel like you took a step back from him after losing Tua. that's kind of concerning long term about Tua. But that point aside, I think this team has a position to be able to compete. Brissett's not going to lose the game. The defense is really good. That said, a lot of the same things could be said about Indy. I'll take Wentz. I don't know. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and change my pick here. I'm going to go with Miami at home, just because they're at home. And yeah, if Carson Wentz is hobbling around like he was last week, it's going to be tough for them to do anything. So unless Carson Wentz really gets close to 100%, I don't know. Maybe Brissett is a better option than hobbled, 75 to 80% version of Carson Wentz. Just because if he can't move, it just takes away a big part of his game. Cleveland and Minnesota. I'm taking the Browns. I mean, it's tough to beat Minnesota in Minnesota for sure. And getting 2 points, maybe if you're betting Minnesota, is an interesting bet here. And we're talking about a world where Minnesota, if they don't get bad calls against them, week 1 in Cincinnati, they might win that game. And if their kicker can make 30-something yard field goal, we could be looking at a world where Minnesota's 3-0, and then the spread is probably flipped, or maybe even just a straight pick 'em. But I like the way Cleveland's playing. I think they've gotten better week by week. They've cut down some of the unforced errors. I mean, they absolutely pushed around a clearly inferior opponent last week in Chicago. And I like that momentum moving forward. And plus, this defense has so many new pieces to it. I thought it was going to take some time for it to gel. And last week, you started to see Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah figure it out. And he was used in so many different ways. And he was one of the best players in football outright last week. And then Myles Garrett had a defensive player of the year type of week. And Jadeveon Clowney was really good. And Minnesota's offensive line's been, okay. It's been better than I thought it was going to fare, but it's not necessarily a good unit, and I don't think there's anybody who can check Garrett nor Clowney. So I'm going to say that pass rush for Cleveland is enough. Kind of similar to what we talked about with Washington versus Matt Ryan. Kirk Cousins not necessarily great against pressure. I think Cleveland's able to generate enough to come away with the road victory. But it is interesting. These offenses are so similar. Obviously, Kevin Stefanski coming from Minnesota. He was once their OC, also quarterbacks coach. Worked with a lot of different units there. But offenses are very similar. So then if you look at it, the battle of defenses, I think Cleveland's a little more solid, especially on the back end, than that of Minnesota. I'll take the Saints plus 7.5. Honestly, I'd probably lay the points here as well with New Orleans. If the Giants can't win last week, man, I thought that was a perfect matchup for them to get their first win over Atlanta, and they just still couldn't do it. Younghoe gets the game-winning field goal to put Atlanta ahead at the final moments of that one. So because of that, New Orleans back at home. I mean, this team has been on the road for so much. This has got to feel good. And I don't know. I think the defense is just special in a lot of ways. Like, they can just completely take away the opposing team's offensive game script. And then when you do that, you allow that offense to be just so much more simplified. You're giving them short field because if you're creating turnovers, or you're just not allowing yards, getting favorable, field position off the punts, anything of that nature. And then in turn, you're giving shorter fields for Jameis Winston, trying to cut down his potential turnover proneness. And in the 2 games where he hasn't had to play hero ball and hasn't had to play from behind, he's looked really, really good. So especially early on, if New Orleans can get out on a good start, be the dictator of the pace of this game and control the tempo and have the momentum early on, I think they're in a good spot to be able to cover the spread here. Jets and Titans, well, frankly, the Jets and the Jags look like the 2 worst teams in the league. Tennessee, I am worried about no Julio. That one's not confirmed, but it does look like they're going to be without A.J. Brown. So without those 2 guys, I mean, you're talking about Chester Rogers and Anthony Firkser being your top 2 targets, I guess. Definitely not a pretty scene, but at the same time, I'm not entirely sure the Jets have what it takes to try to slow down Derrick Henry. To that point, I'm not entirely sure. Once you get to carry 25 with Derrick Henry, I don't know if there's a defense out there ready to stop Derrick Henry. I mean, that man just breaks all rules of physics with his running style. And Tannehill's solid, and they're adding more and more play action into the offense. So just high EV type of plays. I'll take Tennessee on the road. But 7 points is a tough one. But the pass rush was pretty good for last week for Tennessee. The offensive line for the Jets has been a weak point. Other than maybe Connor McGovern, he's been solid. But other than that, I like Tennessee pretty much in every aspect of this one. Kansas City and Philadelphia, especially after Monday night. Philadelphia is feeling a little pretender-ish. I'm going to be doing, contender for pretender video here pretty soon. Maybe call it fact or fiction. We'll see. But Philadelphia, that week 1 win over Atlanta looks like more of a product of Atlanta just not being good, especially early on, rather than Philadelphia being a sneaky good team. But that's just, based off them playing Dallas and just getting blasted. I think Kansas City needs to get back on track, 1 and 2, to get back to 500 in a big way. The offense clicking on full cylinders, picking apart that zone defense for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to let Mahomes play underneath, but eventually a big play is going to come. I'll take Kansas City on the road. I'll even lay the points with them. Rams and Cardinals. This is what a 3-0 versus 3-0 matchup, right? I think the Rams at home. I've said it once, said it again. I think the Rams are going to be the storyline of the NFL. The offense is going to be the buzz. Matt Stafford's going to get early MVP recognition. That's exactly what's happened. Like, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I've been spot on with that, and I think it continues. Granted, Arizona, per PFF grades, top 3 team in the league in coverage grades. Definitely not something I envisioned saying when Malcolm Butler retires, and I'm talking about, well, it's Marco Wilson, it's Tay Gowan, it's a bunch of okay options at best in that secondary, plus Budda Baker, who's a stud. But they use him in so many different ways. Is he really, truly a deep safety? I don't know. He just does so much else. But that said, that coverage unit has been really, really good, and it's been a surprise, but a welcome one at that. Plus, they generate a good amount of pass rush. But the Rams' offensive line is really good, and that scheme is just, it's going to find an open player. And Matt Stafford's going through those progressions. I mean, I know Mike Edwards fell on that play, but that deep bomb from Deshaun Jackson is exactly why you get Matt Stafford, right? If that was Jared Goff, it's read 1, read 2, check down. Instead, Stafford looking on the left side of the field, 1-2, and part of it's he's trying to pull the safety down. Edwards falls, and it's an easy touchdown. But even if Edwards doesn't fall, he's still backpedaling, and as long as Stafford leads the ball forward for Jackson, that's a touchdown. So those are the types of things that you get with Stafford over Goff, and I think you will really see it again this week. And again, I think they'll be the storyline of the NFL early on in the year. Plus, they're at home. That definitely helps as well. San Francisco and Seattle, I just have my concerns about really both these teams' coverage units. The cornerbacks are just not great. Neither one of them getting Sherman back. It's kind of funny. It's a battle between former Sherman teams the week that he signs with Tampa Bay. Irony. But I'll take San Francisco at home, and I still just like the offense a little bit more. I'm really digging what Kyle Shanahan's doing. He's leveraging movement in the offense really, really well. Giving the ball out to Deebo Samuel. Starting to see some more Brandon Ayuk. Hopefully that is a trend that continues to move in that direction. And then for Seattle, I don't have necessarily problems with the offense, and I could totally see this going the other way around, right? Like, I could see highlight clips a week ahead of DK Metcalf bodying whoever is lined up against him because they're just not as good. And I could see Tyler Lockett get behind Emmanuel Mosley or, whoever, Josh Norman in that secondary. And I could totally see that outcome being as true as well. But I'm just going to take San Francisco because they're at home. They battled with Green Bay. They were an unreal drive away from going to OT with the Packers. So I'll stick with San Francisco. Plus, that pass rush is elite. Russell Wilson can do a lot to avoid pass rush, but sometimes he's also someone who invites it because of how long he holds onto the ball and how deep he'll carry himself back in the pocket. So it's one of those you give and you take. And I think there's some chances for 49ers to get more out of those sacks as opposed to what you give up. But obviously, time will tell the story. Broncos and Ravens. Kind of miraculous that the Broncos are favored at this point. That's kind of insane to me. But I mean, hey, I get it. I'm not knocking it. They're 3-0. Ravens are coming off a week where they relied on the greatest kicker of all time to get them a win and improve to 2-1. And they're going on the road. It's tough to play in Denver in the month of September. So because of that, home field advantage is definitely a big reason why, even in my preseason predictions video, I almost took Denver in this one. But I just think this is the first real test for the Broncos, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a shell shock type of moment, just like with Carolina, where you see them against a playoff caliber team, and you're like, okay, there's still some pieces there to work with, but they're not 3-0 caliber, top 5 caliber type of team in the NFL. So I'll take the Ravens. Plus, they just run the ball really well, and AJ Johnson, Alexander Johnson's solid. They don't have Josie Jewell, though, and he's the more athletic of the two. I think this run game could give specifically the inside linebacking core in general for Denver some fits, make it really tough for them. But hey, Shelby Harris, Draymond Jones in specific's been playing really, really good, so they might be able to just plug the rushing attack at the line. So this is as coin toss as I've seen throughout the week. This, and ironically enough, the Lions-Bears game, pretty tough ones to call. Steelers-Packers, yeah, I'm taking Green Bay at home. This Pittsburgh offense looks like that of a high school team. I mean, it's just sad. I don't want to go on this tangent. It's too painful for me. But Green Bay is starting to figure it out. They battled tough on the road against a playoff caliber team in my eyes in San Francisco. And they're just figuring out ways to win with pretty much just Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones as their offensive weapons for Aaron Rodgers. They need to figure out how to get more MVS, more Allen Lazard, more Randall Cobb, all those things, more Robert Tonyan. But at the same point, If this game comes down to Devontae Adams versus Joe Hayden, or Devontae Adams certainly against James Pierre, Cameron Sutton, I mean, give me Devontae Adams against any of those, against both of them, honestly. For Pittsburgh to try to slow him down, it might take some Calvin Johnson double coverage right at the line type of shenanigans, because Adams is just that good, and Pittsburgh's secondary has been that bad in the early going. So I'm definitely taking Green Bay at home. The revenge game, or the return, I guess, is what they're calling it, but Tampa Bay on the road. I think they poured on New England. That on top of, despite the Bucs having some coverage issues, getting thin, I don't think Richard Sherman's going to be someone who gets a ton of playing time this week. It looks like that offense is a little too quick to dump it down. And I think that was something I liked about Mac Jones' first 2 weeks. He's quick to dump it down, take the check down, move the chains, be efficient, kind of Brady-like, and then he'll make some throws that give you, again, those Brady vibes. But after defenses have started to make some adjustments, we're starting to get sample sizes, some updated film on teams. Opposing defenses are starting to play the Patriots closer to the line of scrimmage. They're starting to crowd the box, and they're starting to limit those check down options for Mac Jones. And I don't know if it's necessarily Jones to want to throw it down the field. Maybe he's a beat behind the throw, and he's just smart enough to not force the issue, or it's because it's Nelson Agholor or Kendrick Bourne, and they're just not getting open down the field. This offense doesn't feel like it has a whole lot of vertical to it, so that's definitely going to be a problem against a team like Tampa Bay, who can make a throw from pretty much anywhere. They can bomb it over you, or they'll take the intermediate stuff, they'll check you down and nickel and dime you all the way through. They can just win in a lot of different ways. And yeah, definitely the return aspect. I think Brady has a big game here, and I feel comfortable laying the points. I almost put this bet down last week when the spread was 5. So wish I had, but it's up to 7. I'd still take the Bucs to lay the points there. Chargers, Raiders. The Raiders are 3-0, but man, I'm just really digging what Brandon Staley's doing with that defense. Asante Samuel Jr. looks like a match made in heaven, exactly what so many people were saying after the draft. And the offense, I mean, Justin Herbert is playing as good as any quarterback, as is Derek Carr. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but Herbert has been so efficient. You get a big game from Mike Williams. If that continues, him, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, Jalen Guyton, you're feeling comfortable about that. Jared Cook's, okay, whatever. But this will be really interesting because it's a battle between two units that have been vastly improved, and a big part of these teams' success, the Raiders pass rush and the Chargers offensive line. I think the Raiders pass rush has been a little bit more impressive than the Chargers offensive line, given the expectations set for both of them coming into the year. But Rashawn Slater has been phenomenal. And if it's Slater versus Yannick Ngakoue, or maybe even Max Crosby, we'll see how he gets lined up. That's going to be a really fun matchup, especially if it's Crosby, right? Slater's been the rookie that's made a huge impact right away. Crosby's having a career year, but he's also gotten really nice matchups against teams that just don't have any sort of offensive lineman that's caliber of Max Crosby and in a position to try to slow him down at all, despite Max Crosby not being, Myles Garrett or anything like that. This could be his toughest matchup. But if he's going up against Storm Norton on the right side, or whoever ends up getting the start there, it might be another big day for Max Crosby. But I'll take the Chargers at home. Really digging that offense. Love what Brandon Staley's doing with the defense. I think they're legit. But I also think the Raiders are pretty good. 3-0. And in a lot of ways, you could say this is the biggest test for the Raiders. Obviously Pittsburgh not as good. The Ravens, you catch them on week 1, anything could happen. And then week 3 against the Dolphins. Yeah, you could probably say the Chargers are their biggest test. It's not quite as big of a leap in competition like Carolina or Denver's having, but there's a small leap there nonetheless. But that's going to do it for my week 4 of the NFL season picks. Tell me what you think down in the comment section. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? Who's your favorite team? Do you think they come away with a win? Do you think they cover the spread? Love to have your thoughts. Let's talk about some football down in the comment section. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button. It really would help me and my channel out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, like what you saw, want more of it, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for today's video. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.